right, CFP Paint back. We're a little bit behind schedule this week, and due to both some family circumstances and just warring corporations over broadcast rights, our football consumption is maybe a little bit lower than typical. Maybe a lot of it lower is probably a better way of saying
Yeah, I'm about to say, considering I watched no football this weekend,
that. well,
a lot of it
well,
nowhere.
we should change the name from CFP Paint to Scoreboard Watchers.
Yes, there you go. At least for this week.
Yeah, that's not a bad name. We should trademark that. Anyway, uh, yeah. So I don't really have a ton to recap. I've got thoughts on like 3 or 4 games. We'll probably make them pretty quick. I did watch Florida State beat Wake Forest in a very surprising fashion. Um, yeah, did not see that coming. I still think it's probably a flash in the pan. Um, my fear, like, and you'll know, like, I've been on this sort of like, if you can find a way to not fire Norvell, it may make sense to delay 1 year, both from a finance perspective and from a just you'll probably be first or second in line for the top head
Yeah,
coach candidate next year.
what team is like has a possibility of firing their coach next year? If
I would. Oh, sorry.
let's say if all goes wrong, do you want to jump into this for a second or no?
Yeah, we can do it
If all goes
because
wrong,
I've thought about this a lot.
yeah, I can come up with
I got one.
one team, Michigan.
Oh,
Is who
okay.
I've got.
Do you think if Texas doesn't make the playoff this year and next year, if the wheels come off next year, I think Sark would be done.
Okay, I can see that. I think Texas makes the playoffs this year, so that's why I probably don't say that.
Really?
Yeah,
I look at the rest of their schedule.
it's
There's still room
hard.
for error.
Oh
What
no,
did let me look at. Oh, okay, they're at 11. Wow, that's a grievance that I have. Sorry, these playoff rankings just barely came out, so I have not even looked at these. Um, they're 11. They're up 2 spots from where they are in the AP and the coaches poll. So really generous. That's wild to me. Okay, I wanted to take a minute, and we'll do it later, where I dissect a little
yeah,
bit of these rankings. But yeah,
yeah,
okay.
let's do it.
Uh, we don't have to do it now. Let's keep talking through this. But yes, Michigan, I agree with. You're absolutely right on that one. I overlooked. I threw out Texas perhaps as another that could open. Again, I'm not predicting that it will. I'm just saying if they have a disappointing, I'm hard pressed to see them in this playoff. Although them being ranked at 11 right now gives me a little bit of pause. But I think you lose one more game, and you have 2 games against Georgia and Texas A&M. Both, or I guess one on the road, one at home.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think you're hard pressed to go 1-1 in that stretch. But all the same, like, yeah,
I think you go 1-1, honestly, in that stretch. And if you go 1-1, I think that gets you in.
yeah. If you win one of them, they'll probably make an excuse for you to get in. But I don't know. Like, I've got. We'll talk through that later. But yeah, my point was like, okay, if you don't make the playoff this year after starting ranked number 1 with all the investment that they've been doing, if you stumble again next year, it could be that could be all she wrote.
Yeah, the only other teams I could think of potentially having want to go in and replace somebody is like maybe USC if
Yeah,
if things go poorly, really poorly to start the year off. I mean, we all kind of expect USC to be about where it is right now, so I don't think they're not meeting expectations. They haven't invested into the players, they've invested more into the coach. Um, so we'll see what happens, but like Lincoln Riley hasn't made it happen for there, and how long
you're not
do they
wrong.
want that experiment to happen? I'm trying to think off the top of my head anybody else I could see. Like I wouldn't say that Clemson maybe if you have a bad year again to start the year off is your only other team that I would sit there and say like that's a higher profile than Florida State maybe.
Yeah, we agree that Venables has done enough to save his job, right?
Yeah, I think Venables is fine.
I think so too. Yeah, I just that was one I was like, okay, if you, I don't know, maybe if you had a poor end to the year, let's say you lose 2 of your last 3, which is Alabama, Missouri, LSU. I don't think so. Missouri's got a backup QB. LSU's fine, but you also get
And
that loss.
you just beat Tennessee,
Yeah,
like
so I think that you're good there. That may be one where again there's some possibility of it happening. I don't think it's super likely. It's not on my like, oh, look out for this. But yeah, I think that you would be second or third in line right now. I think you're probably fifth in line if you're Florida State. So I can make the argument for it. Where I was going with that sort of initial statement was like I mean, it is one more year where you're sort of in purgatory, and so it's like, how many years do you want to be like that when it feels like the landscape of college football? There's rumblings, and eventually, I think there's going to be some sort of new world order,
Yeah,
taking off of whatever.
I do think like I was a Steve Sark that kind of said it this weekend. Like everybody wants to fire the coach. Who you gonna hire? And I think that's what we're gonna see. We're gonna see like, oh, like we're firing awfully quick, but we don't necessarily know who we're gonna get, and is that really actually better? And I think, as weird as it may say, this holding off on Florida State might be actually a wise call by Alford. Like you, if you have talks with Norvell and say you really need to focus on high school recruiting and development. Those are your two biggest flaws. And if you can address those flaws, we can look past this. But the flaws have to be addressed in 2 years. Like, granted, he's had 6 years to do this. I don't disagree with that. But if you sit there and say like that's, I'm always, I always feel like I'm a fan of very real feedback. So it gives you an opportunity to improve, and that's the real feedback Norvell needs is development, focusing on the high school rankings. And if he's more so, is that means you need to put your metal to or tail to the ground and work really really hard. You need to go Mario esque if you're going to be competitive here.
Yeah, and I'd say you also need a staff that's also uh, about that life too, right? So
Yes, and you need to hold them accountable to that. Yeah, I
so
agree.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I still don't think you keep him. I think it sends a bad message that you're going to tolerate two pretty disappointing years in a row. Overall, like probably 4 or 5 disappointing years in a 6 year tenure. Not four,
Yeah,
but four, I'd say. Even then, like I'd give him grace on like his first year. First year, I feel like everyone kind of gets a pass, so maybe 3 of 6, but that's a much lower clip than Florida State fans are comfortable with. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, good for them. Good turnout by the fans, by the way. They filled up that stadium, which was surprising.
and
It was
got the rally
700.
flags going up like the Oklahoma State fans.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So my brother-in-law's works at Oklahoma State, and he's
Yeah,
just been pointing out every week, like all these people keep copying us. But
yeah, that's how it works. Chance to go to the next people.
that's right. Okay. Like I said, I'm pretty low on like actual games that I watched, but the ACC laid an egg this last week, multiple
Mm-hmm.
times, right?
Yep.
And really, I guess I mean we can talk Georgia Tech first. I think I had mentioned I think I mentioned it on our last pod
You
that I thought
did.
that would
You
be
did.
potentially a problem.
You said going
Um,
in there late at night
Carter
or
Finley
yeah, on Halloween could be scary.
Yeah, I just feel like that place is always like Friday nights are the worst. Like give me the biggest like anyone going into Carter Finley Stadium on a Friday night is in real trouble. Like I
Yeah.
don't care how much better your team is than they are. It's just like it feels like that. But sure enough, they got it done. Yeah, and that's wild. Like Georgia Tech opened with a yeah, Georgia Tech opened. They were what a 6 point favorite. I can't remember. They had
Five
the
and a half
lead.
because
They had the
I
lead.
picked him.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and it seemed like at the beginning they were going things were going great, and it just sort of snowballed. The last, you know, outscored 24-20, I guess, in the last couple in the second half. I'm doing my math. 24-19. Okay, maybe not quite as bad as it looked. But yeah, I just like that. That's one that I feel like Georgia Tech is. Yeah, they'll play tough. They're a good plucky underdog. I don't know. I think they're kind of beneficiaries of what to this point has been a pretty navigable schedule. But
100%.
I
I
think
mean, you've played your toughest game is Clemson, who is not who we thought it was going to be. But then you played Colorado close. We all know Colorado's not that great a team. We've played Wake Forest close. You played Duke semi close. Like you've been very favorable with who you've played. If they dropped one to Pitt, I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah, well, for I think a couple of reasons. I think Pitt's a pretty good team. I think that new quarterback they found is pretty fun. Did not see him this last week, but he's a capable player as a true freshman. So it'll be interesting to see where he plays next year.
Yeah.
Just mostly kidding, mostly. Um, all right, But
We all know you want to go to
Mario,
Miami.
yeah, I was gonna say we love hating on Mario Cristobal, and I wish I could pull some of the clips that we have stockpiled over the last 3 years about Mario Cristobal losing games he's not supposed to, and routinely. I would say I can't think of a single Mario Cristobal head coaching football season. Maybe when he was down at Florida International, this wasn't the case. But at Oregon, certainly was the case. At Miami, it's certainly been the case that he, I think, every season has lost at least one just like mind-boggling game where it's like, how on earth did you lose to them, right? And I say that like with the disdain that their fan base is probably feeling, and in terms of just like last year's loss to Syracuse was a gut punch. Last year's loss to gosh, who else did they lose to last year? Georgia Tech. After losing to Georgia Tech the year before, which was the worst of them all, right? That was we have the game won and we run the football and the guy fumbles, but maybe didn't actually fumble. He was probably down, but you left it. You gave them that opportunity. Georgia Tech wins that game, but like even dating back to like, I mean, he lost to Jaden Daniels as a true freshman at Arizona State with Justin Herbert as his quarterback, and go through that team, and you'll be stunned at the number of pros that were on Oregon's team. Although there were, in fairness to Arizona State, yeah, Jaden Daniels, it took him a while to blossom, but he really became a star. He had a really
Yeah,
promising freshman year. Brandon Ayuk, I think, was the other like big star on that team, the wide receiver who has the super long touchdown at the end that gives Arizona State the final lead. He's always bungled it. He's never once been able to just kind of get through a clean season.
yeah. No, I'm looking through his things. Like, they're Miami's still on pace potentially to have the best season that he's ever had, which is a 2-loss season. And we're talking regular season losses. Two. He's always had two. We're not even going into
It's
postseason.
tied for last year, right?
Last year, yeah, he had 2 losses regular season.
Yeah,
They lost to
10.
Pop Tart Bowl.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like now the one thing he's got going for him still is he might be able to get a bowl win, which is a rare find at the University of Miami. So maybe that puts him over the top. Like, okay, next year,
Maybe his quarterback only decides to play the first half and they lose. Who knows?
yeah. So yeah.
Is Cristobal the new Clemsoning, or is Clemsoning going
Oh
back
my
to Clemsoning?
gosh, genius. Yeah. Well, like I think Clemson, and you have to have some expectations. So, like, I would say what Clemson's doing right now is like, no, they just destroyed them. They're Florida Stating right now. And and Cristobal, like, yeah, is the new Clemson. I like that. Uh, we're gonna call it that from now on. Yeah, just wild and disappointing for Miami fans. A little bit of Schadenfreude for those of us that have nothing to root for at this point. Uh, good on good on Miami, brightening my day on Saturday. Yeah, just I thought that was one of those things where you've had now back to back seasons where like last year you had the number one overall pick as your QB, could not make a 12-team playoff with it. This year you bring in Carson Beck. He's now starting to the interceptions are starting to mount up. I don't know if you've seen that over the last like three or
Yes.
four weeks. Uh-oh. And I don't know, like they'll I mean they're not gonna fire Cristobal, but this is the Cristobal experience that you signed up for, right? Awesome recruiting classes. You get like you sort of win the press conference on signing day every year. And then those same players that are really well thought of and for the most part pretty well developed and will probably enjoy long prosperous NFL careers just don't get it done on Saturdays. And this is across multiple like coordinators. It's Cristobal is the problem here. Like,
Yeah, and then the question is like, where do you go from here? Do you go? Was it Emory Williams? Like, who's the next quarterback for them?
uh,
Like,
so they have a guy that's they're who's currently in high school that I think has a decent shot to play early. Like, I think he's
okay,
a pretty special player. Darian Coleman, I think is his name. The question
yeah,
is
okay,
he thick enough? He's skinny, so I don't know if he's built to play right away. But yeah, I think they're shoppers in the portal again. Like,
And the thing is like you have a chance to lose to NC State and you have a chance to lose to Pitt. Like you once again you've started off hot and then you squander it down the
Yeah,
side and
that Pitt game's on the road, right? You're playing in
yeah.
November in Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
I don't know. Like I just said, I like that Pitt QB. Like we'll see.
Yeah.
I think Pitt's gonna get someone. They're gonna get either Notre Dame or Miami or who else do they play? There's one other where I was like, oh, they'll probably jump up and bite that team.
You got Notre Dame, you have Georgia Tech, and Miami. You finished with a hard
Yeah,
schedule for
yeah,
Pitt, but
yeah. It's tough. They won't go. I'm not saying they'll win all those, but by the way, if they do, you got to start talking about them as a potential at-large bid too. Like, and they are
yeah,
ranked
because
24th. So
if they win all
so
three, that'd be if they beat Georgia Tech and Miami, they're a one loss team in the ACC.
oh yeah, they'd be. That's right. They'd be right in there for the title game. So
It
yeah,
is kind of crazy that they lost, and they lost that wild game with to West Virginia.
yeah, yeah.
So
Um, and you could also make the argument for them like, hey, they were playing the wrong quarterback. Now, I don't necessarily give people that. Like that to me is like, oh well, the same coach that
you're
made
not,
the wrong
you're
decision to
not
play the
Kurt
wrong
Herbstreit.
QB.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. If he made the wrong decision to play the wrong QB, then that same coach that's capable of making that poor of a decision is going to be on the sideline for a playoff. So I don't necessarily give him that excuse and let him get in. But yeah, they're going to get one of them. I don't think Pitt goes. They're 7-2 right now. I don't think they're 7-5 at the end of the year. I think they're winning at least one of those games. Yeah, that's I don't know. It's just interesting. Like Miami, this is the Cristobal experience that Oregon fans warned you about, and at some point, I think the we're building. Like, hey, this is what year 4, is that right? So like he's running out of time too to show that he can win anything of substance, right? So that's a challenge for Miami, and I just like it must be so frustrating because at the beginning of the year it's like, man, they looked so hard to beat. They looked so tough, beating Notre Dame, kind of letting Notre Dame back in that game. They made it look closer than it really was. I feel like they were
Yes.
really beating them. Killed a Florida team that like, and they're one of the ones like I don't know if we want to transition to this now, but like in the playoff rankings, like I'm stunned. Miami's way lower than they should be. Like I know they've lost 2 not great games, but they also have 2 better wins than Texas. They have 2 better wins. They obviously beat Notre Dame, right? Like so I there's like they should be. I think, in my opinion, they should be low teens, right? They should be kind of right in that Oklahoma, Utah, Texas, Virginia range. They're at 18, which to me is like,
Yeah, to me it looks like when you lost matters because like you have Vanderbilt at 7-2 down below. Vanderbilt's losses are to Texas and A&M, or sorry, Texas and Bama. And Texas this last week they only lost by 3. Granted, like they were getting blown out, but they closed the gap to some degree. You look at uh, Miami. Miami's losses are recent, but you look at Texas, Oklahoma, and Utah, not as recent losses. So I think it's a little
yeah,
bit
you're
of
not
recency
wrong.
bias in there.
You're actually you're definitely right on that. Where the teams that have lost early have been able to sort of, and that's always been the case in college football, right? Like even when it was like the BCS system, like if you lost in week 1 or 2 in like a high profile non conference game, you had time to like make up for that, and for other people to take losses and kind of get knocked down a peg. So I don't love that part of it, but I do feel like I was listening or looking at some dialogue on this where it's like Notre Dame and Miami, both are seemingly fairly likely to go 10-2, right? Like that's where they
Yeah,
look like they'll sort of project out more or less. But the talk was like if they're both 10-2, Notre Dame looks like the better team right now, but they also lost that game, and so like I am firmly on team like, hey, if we're equal, you have to go to the head to head, and I just don't. Yeah, I don't like what they're doing with some of these where yeah, Notre Dame, yeah, okay, they've lost 2 close games, but they did lose them, and Miami has beat Notre Dame. Like that to me is like one of those ones where it's like I don't understand why there's a 8 slot gap between Miami and Notre Dame.
yeah, but I mean, look at.
Doesn't make a lot of
I
sense.
mean, to some degree that's true, but I mean, if you're going to do that same thing, like Bama lost to Florida State. You look at Georgia's loss. You look at Ole Miss's loss. You look at Texas Tech's loss. You look at Orange's loss. They all lost to ranked teams. Are we not going to hold that one against Bama? Bama's been playing amazing though.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think my argument there is that they beat Georgia, right? So they beat the team right behind them, and that's their only loss. So it's like they have a resume that sort of balances out a little bit more. Yes, they have one of the worst losses of any of the teams in the top 25, without question.
no, they
Uh,
have the worst loss of anybody
well,
in the
I
top
just I haven't like
25.
looked at like there may be someone further down that's got 2 or 3 losses. I might put underneath that. I just said one of them just because I didn't want to be gotcha on that. But yes, it's not good. Florida State's not a good football team, and they lost to them by 14. But like what I'm saying is like they have like kind of enough scalps on the wall where it's like, okay, well, we beat Vanderbilt, we beat Georgia, we beat Missouri, we beat Tennessee. Like, all right, and Tennessee I don't think should be ranked, but that's another question. But like they have wins that sort of offset that, right? Whereas like Texas lost to Florida. Miami beat Florida. Miami beat Notre Dame. Texas doesn't have a better win than Miami. They have a worse loss than Miami. Like, I I don't see. Yeah, like I don't see why Texas is where it is.
That'd be valid. I understand. I can see that.
That's where I have Miami like, and mostly what I'm saying, not necessarily that Texas should be punished more. I'm saying that Miami's being punished way worse than everyone else is. Like, yeah, you've lost to 2 unranked teams, but you've also beaten 2 teams that like Florida hung tough with Georgia. Florida, uh, who else? Florida beat Texas, and you beat that team convincingly, like thoroughly. You beat them. What was the final of that game? You won so comfortably. I can't even remember that. Like it wasn't. It didn't come down to last. Yeah, you won
26-7.
26-7.
Are you talking about Florida
Yeah,
State? Yeah.
yeah, 26-7. Like that was not close. And then they beat Texas. They hang tough with Georgia. Like I don't know. That to me is one that you got to give them a little bit more credit than they're getting, which is a little yeah. Either way, I just like these rankings. I don't love the way that they go about doing it. I would the ACC's officiating, like when they go to replay review, that is like that should be the goal of transparency that you see everywhere else, both in that facet of the game, but also in these committee discussions. Like, all right, why is it such a I've got words for it, but I won't use them. Like, why is it such a black box? Like, I hate that. Like, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that it doesn't inspire faith in the system. It's no good. Yeah,
Well, and if I control the rankings, I'm going to keep it a black box too because I don't want people to know that I'm favoring teams to who I care about.
yeah, and that's that's where I would like it. So it's like you can't rig it, right? Where it's just like, hey, that's my I would be a proponent of conference champions only. If you don't like that, if you're saying our conference is too tough, we'll get out of that conference, and then we'll have competitive balance across the conferences as people sort of you'll find equilibrium, right? Like, but right now it's like, no, we're going to be in this conference, we're going to make all this money, and then we're going to rig the system so that we get all the people in the playoff, and I can't stand that. So yeah, the one thing I maybe
Yeah.
didn't understand or see coming when it came to conference realignment was the number with the number of teams in, for instance, the SEC, and it's the one that's most prevalent here. And part of it is like, look, I do think it's the best conference, right? Like I'm not running away from that fact, but it also is kind of benefiting from the fact that like, hey, of these of our major teams right now, most of them haven't played one another to this point in the season, and some of them will go on to play each other. But when you do that and you're in the top 5 at the very end of the season and you lose a competitive game to a top 5 team, I don't think you're going to get dinged quite like you might if you're going into a game toward the end of the season and you already have a couple losses and you end up losing a third or a second game. So I just like it is one of those things where let's see, the SEC has 1, 2, 3, 4 in the top 6 and 6 of the top 12, and it's like how much crossover are we actually getting in of those opponents? Like at a glance, Bama and Texas A&M don't play one another in the regular season. Bama, Georgia do. Does Bama play Ole Miss? I don't think so.
But that's the benefit of having these big conferences. You can get more teams in
That's
because
what
you
I'm
don't end
saying.
up beating each
So
other
yeah,
up.
yeah, you don't end up even playing one another, and so it's like you can have lots of 10-2 teams, or 10-2 ish teams with one loss in conference each, and then it's like we don't actually know where they all stack, and so that's why we got to put them all in the playoff, and I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway, off my soapbox.
Yeah.
Also, not a
Anyway,
single G.
any other?
Sorry, not a single
Go ahead.
G5 team in the top 25 is a little surprising too. Like,
Who would you consider?
I would consider Memphis. I would consider USF. I would potentially even consider San Diego State.
Okay, I think
Those are
Memphis
probably
is
my
reasonable.
top three, I think. And then you got to let a little bit more play out so you can kind of see a few other things. But like North Texas potentially, if
Yeah,
Jones
them or James Madison. Yeah.
yeah, James Madison, like their only losses to Louisville, who's 15, like, and they've been killing teams.
Yeah.
Like some of it's like, all right, can we do a little bit more research outside of the Power Four, like at the very least, so that those teams know where they stand going into, you know, they're all essentially competing for one spot, right? You have the top 5 conference champions that get an automatic playoff berth, but according to these rankings, unless I'm overlooking someone, like there's not a single G5 team in it. So if I'm James Madison and I'm trying to compare myself, like how does the committee see me versus South Florida versus Memphis?
Yeah. What we
State?
do know
I
is
don't know.
what we do know is that Memphis was put in the playoff release bracket projection
Did they put that?
this last
Okay,
week.
so they did say like Memphis is out in front. Okay,
Yeah, they're 12th. So
got it. All right. Um. So yeah, I think
as the projected winner of the American, I guess. So yeah, Memphis wasn't ranked by the committee's top 25, but the group continues to rank teams until a group of 5 team is included, and then publicize which one it is without revealing the full rankings. So, anyways,
all
yeah.
right. I hate the system that we have. It's kind of long and short. It's yeah. It's one of those things where the powers that be in the sport sort of took like, hey, there's popular support for a playoff, but and there was, and I was a big proponent of it mostly because when you're splitting hairs, if there's 2 teams playing, like how do you decide of these like 4 or 5 really elite teams which ones get that opportunity, especially when sometimes you've had either multiple undefeated teams or maybe one undefeated team that everyone kind of agrees like that team should get in, but there's like 3 or 4 others that are all pretty close, and it's like how do you actually decide who gets that crack at a national championship? And I don't know. I feel like they took that opportunity. And I feel like I was on this again. This predates our podcast days, but when they introduced a 14 playoff and also changed the process by selecting a process in selecting a team, is like red flag. This is a problem. I think they knew if they kept up with the BCS, number one, Boise State would have been in playoffs for like 4 or 5 years, back to back to back to back to back. And they're like, well, we can't have that. And so they had to change it. And now that it's 12, it's like, okay, we're fine giving one G5 spot because we're going to hoard 5 or 6 for the 2 major conferences. It's all bad. I don't like it. This is kind of the long and short of it.
Gotcha.
You got me in a mood today. Sorry.
It's all good.
It's the first playoff reveal, and I just think the whole thing's just so corrupt and stupid.
Yeah, I actually never watched the playoff reveal and don't even worry about them until the very end because it's like whatever. But the one thing I want to talk about is Indiana. They continue to thump teams and beat teams at will. I'm excited to see how this team does as it goes on the rest of the year, and once they get into the playoffs, because you play a Penn State team that played Ohio State semi-close until Ohio State pulled away. Wisconsin and Purdue. You don't really play any quote-unquote buddy until you get to the Big Ten championship.
Indianapolis, yeah.
And that'll be probably what you'll be playing Ohio State. And that'll be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those games where it's like, okay, does that end up being one where you lose the battle to try and win the war, though? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's where my thought process, and I swear I'll let it go after this, I promise. But like, it's like, okay, if you did just conference champions, that becomes your first round, and so it becomes do or die. But now it's like, oh, they're both going to be in. Maybe I keep some of my best plays still in my back pocket for the playoff. Like, so
But it does mean a bye in the first round too.
not necessarily.
I'll be
Like,
honest. If you win the Big Ten, you don't think the other person
oh,
like
you
if
sure do.
if
I'm saying you're not eliminated from a bye if you lose it.
I think if you lose it, you don't have a chance to get a bye.
Mm. I mean, if we're 1-2 and I play you close, like
Maybe.
they're gonna knock me down to 5. Like, I don't know. That to me might it would probably depend on the results around it. I'm just saying it's not a guaranteed thing that you don't get a bye if you lose to the number one team in a close game. Like, whatever. I'm not. I don't want to take us down too far down that path, but just like, yeah, it's one of those things that, like, if you had, like, hey, there's so many playoff spots and the conference champion of each team gets it, it would solve lots of these problems, right? Like, teams that are like, oh man, I'm in this really tough conference, but it's also like so crowded. I probably should go to another conference where I feel like I can stand out more. And then you'd also get the conference championship games having a little bit more weight to them, other than the leagues that are one bid leagues that really don't have a chance but to win the conference championship game.
Yeah, the one thing I do is want. I mean, and we kind of have seen is like the teams that play in the first round tend to play well in the second round because they're not
That's true.
as rusty,
Yeah, every single one of them
and
won
also
last time.
you get a home game potentially. Like that's a fun little experience, and that it's
Yeah,
an
of course.
economic boost. And yeah,
I
like
think
if
that.
if BYU wasn't ranked the top four and they end up winning the Big 12, I like having a home playoff game would be freaking
Oh
a
my god, that place
blast.
would be nuts. Yeah. Um, as nuts as it can get for a fully sober crowd. Um, what else was I gonna say? Oh, I think this was the one thing that some people had asked me about, was like, hey, do you think the Big 12 can get 2 teams in? My answer is yes. Where Utah is, where BYU is, and where Texas Tech is, if it's a close game between BYU and Texas Tech, and then you end up seeing, let me kind of look through what this would take to make this happen. Because the winner of that game is going to get a bump, right? The winner of that game is going to go, I would assume, to like somewhere in the 5-6 range. The SEC
Yeah,
teams, Texas A&M and Texas are going to play one another. If Texas wins, or you may risk like a leapfrog there. I think there's not a terrible chance of that happening. It's like,
yeah. Utah's ranked significantly higher by the playoff committee than they are anywhere else, and
yeah,
that's what makes it a potential. And I mean, they don't really play anybody to finish off. That's the other thing. You play Baylor, Kansas State, and
yeah.
Kansas, which you should
You
be
have to
favored to
keep
win.
killing teams, right? Like, you have to keep doing what you've done these last 2 weeks.
And you
If
need
you're Utah,
teams above you to slip, like significantly.
yeah.
But I
But
also feel
if
like
you
this
get
year
to,
yeah, I feel like this year they're also not going to punish teams for losing in the conference playoff or conference championship as much as they potentially have in the past. Like they're if you lose in the conference championship, it's kind of like, oh well, at least you've made it to the conference championship, and so you might have like an Oregon that loses again, or if Texas gets there, a Texas that loses again. Not that Texas likely will get there, but um, I'm just looking at these things. Like if you end up with a BYU Texas Tech championship and one of them loses,
yeah,
is Utah
it's,
send a hotline?
oh,
Yeah,
I think if they split those games, you're both in, right? Like, if you, let's say, hypothetically, BYU is a 10-point underdog at Texas Tech in Lubbock this weekend. Like, I think they will lose that game, right? Like, I'm rooting for them, but I think they
right.
will lose that game. If you lose that game and you win in the Big 12 championship, I think Texas Tech is probably still in, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because they weren't going to
Yeah,
get
it's
punished for
two
making the
losses, but
championship.
again, they split. It's like two losses, but one of them almost is mitigated in the fact that it's like, hey, we played that team twice. They won once. We won once. Like, um, so yeah, I think that there's at least a chance of it. Whereas at the beginning of the year, I thought there was no way. And even if you'll recall, at the beginning of the year, I thought the biggest thing, and it may still come back to haunt them, was like, I thought the Big 12 was actually pretty good this year. Maybe wasn't entirely right about that, my philosophy was like, I think they're good. I don't think they have the non-conference schedule to prove it, and
Yep,
I think
and that's
that's
100%
kind
true.
of that part has sort of borne out, right? Like, Texas Tech didn't. I can't remember uh, who their non-conference yeah teams were.
Oregon
Utah
State.
beat. Oh yeah, Oregon State. Utah beat UCLA, um, and so that's okay. That's a fine win, like whatever, right? Like UCLA is kind of one of those weird in the middle teams. They beat Penn State. Penn State's fallen off a cliff. Um, BYU didn't have anyone of note in their non-conference. Their best non-conference win, I believe, is Stanford. Maybe it's
Yeah.
ECU actually. It probably is ECU. Um,
Well, I mean, you had like what? Baylor lost to Auburn, right?
mm-hmm.
Colorado lost to Georgia Tech. Iowa
Oklahoma
State.
State got blasted by Oregon. Iowa State beat
Yeah,
Iowa, so that's one.
yeah. And then UCF, North Carolina. Has that happened already?
That one hasn't happened yet, but TCU blasted North Carolina. But North
Yeah.
Carolina's again just barely got their first ACC win, so it's like the teams that you've beaten haven't held their own in their respective conferences. So
I think.
that
What about Cincinnati and Nebraska?
Nebraska won.
Did they play?
Yeah,
Okay, so there you go. Yeah, yeah. They haven't held their own
everything
very much in
almost
the
to a
team.
draw. Like Brendan Sorsby throws an interception with like I don't know, like a minute and change left, something like that. As they're driving to potentially take the lead, and he throws an interception. But like again, you didn't have the sort of the collective performance against other conferences that you probably needed to. But if you're gonna have something where the ACC is a one bid league, which it kind of looks like right now,
Most
and you
assuredly
know,
is. Yeah.
and I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Like I said, I think Miami's getting they're getting a pretty raw deal when I look at what they've done compared to some of the other teams in front of them, what they have or have not done. But if that's a one bid league, are you going to give them all to the SEC? I don't think so. Like you're going to have to give some. And the Big Ten, like you said, Michigan's been sort of disappointing. Washington hasn't quite found their legs just yet. Illinois maybe had hoped to, I mean, they're what 6-3 right now. Like if they were 6-2, you may or 7-2, you probably have another shot at another one. But the Big Ten looks like it's maybe three. Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State. Like that seems like those are the only ones I could see making it. And if Oregon, is upset by like a USC, is that enough to move USC in? If Washington beats them, is it enough to move Washington in? I'm not sure. So like there's an opportunity for another at-large bid or two to go to a different conference, and again, odds are that it will be the SEC that takes it. But I mean, if you're looking
And
at
that's
your
assuming no
SEC
teams
or your
stumble
Big
on.
12,
And you're assuming no teams stumble on somebody they shouldn't too. So like when that
that's
happens,
true.
that throws it all into
Yeah,
disarray.
it might throw it all. But I'm saying that I think the Big 12 was 6-1 versus the ACC this year, so they've got that maybe sort of feather in their
Mhm.
cap if they're
Yeah.
looking at okay, if we're gonna give another bid to someone else that's outside of those two major conferences, it's probably the Big 12. I think.
Well, if you look at you got Big 12, Big 12, Big 12, three of them ranked ahead of four ACC teams ranked down below. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
All right. Sorry, I took enough time on that. It's fresh on the brain. It just got released a
yeah,
few minutes ahead of us push and record. This weekend, are there any games that we want to break down? I mean, the BYU Texas Tech game feels like the biggest one, but admittedly, I've not spent as much time looking at that as I normally would. I guess
it's
it's
not
more just
necessarily
push and
big.
record.
No, for me, it's not necessarily like big games. It's just a matter of who can hold serve, and then also like, yeah, who can hold serve this week, and who doesn't hold serve. That's what's gonna be the key. And everybody else is. I mean, is that the only ranked matchup this whole? See, oh, you have Texas A&M and Missouri, but
Yeah, but Missouri's with their backup QB, so like I just
yeah, and then Oregon. Yeah, Oregon and Iowa.
Oregon
So those are the
Iowa.
three
Yeah,
ranked
that one's interesting.
matchups.
I would love to have had that be like a night game for in Kinnick Stadium.
Yeah,
Do the wave,
you know,
the
rather
Children's
than
Hospital.
yeah. It's in the afternoon, but and still like this Oregon team is ranked high, but I was going back through their wins. It's like you beat Montana State, you beat Oklahoma State badly. You played Northwestern, you beat them by 20. Northwestern's proven to be actually a semi decent team. You beat Oregon State, who's not any good. Then you struggled a little bit with Penn State. You lost to Indiana. You played around with Wisconsin. Like this team has not been the
Yeah, of
org.
late
Like
they've really faded. Yeah.
yeah, they just haven't been as consistent and as good as I expected them. So now they're going into the harder part of their schedule. You play at Iowa, you play USC, you play at Wisconsin, and then on top of that, you play a Minnesota team, which I think, yeah, they're 6-3 this year. That's not a team to just laugh at or by any means. Who has pulled off wins against Nebraska, and then yeah, that's about it. But still, we'll see
Yeah, and then
where this
they're
what ends up.
overloaded.
It's a matter of holding serve this weekend.
That's a good way of putting it. Teams most likely to not hold serve.
And the way I watch football this week is I literally jumped to the closest game. I'm like, all right, I don't really care what's going on. I'm just going to jump to the closest
There
game.
you go. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that Oregon Iowa game I think is fascinating. I think Texas A&M. I'm going to say this and I'm going to jinx them. Texas A&M, like the spread is what 6.5 versus Missouri. I just don't trust Missouri to score any points. Right, like backup QB. Texas A&M is not bad on defense. They're a really good offensive line. I think they'll be able to hold their own against Missouri's pretty good pass rush. Like, and I think just Marcel Reed's dual threat capabilities kind of mitigate a pass rush. They at least slow it down so they don't like blow by him and open up a bunch of rush lanes. So I trust Texas A&M this weekend at my own peril. Yeah, BYU, BYU Texas Tech. I don't know. I think Texas Tech's gonna win. I think that spread is right. Gosh, I want them to win. I have a hard time seeing it. I think you're going to have a hard time blocking Texas Tech's defensive line. Can your defense slow down Texas Tech's offense enough to like turn it into a slugfest? I think I said this before we pushed record, but like if you can draw them into that kind of a game and just play sort of like, I mean, again, I don't think you're going to be able to move the ball, but can you shorten the game? Can you make it so that each team gets 3 possessions in each half, and then turn it into like a 17-14
and
type game? I think that's your best path to victory.
BYU's won their games. No, I see. BYU's won their games in forcing turnovers and then explosive plays where they kind of scheme something open and all of a sudden Parker Kingston or Chase Roberts is open for a 40, 50-yard play and they're in the red zone. Um, and I think that's the path to get there is like having the defense be able to force some turnovers, force some mistakes, and then hit your explosives. If they can do that, then they have a chance. And also, I mean, if you go back to the Utah game, playing well on critical downs, like that's what happened. What happened? They played well on fourth down. Yeah, I think it's a combination of all three of those things, like hitting your explosive plays, forcing the opponents into turnovers, which I don't know no I don't know off the top of my head how many interceptions this team has thrown. Yeah, 7 total, which is not great. Um, but yeah, forcing them in those issues, and we talked about potentially quarterback injuries for Texas Tech. If they end up having quarterback injuries, you might have a chance there too.
Yeah, because Will Hammond tore his ACL. He's out for the season, so the backup is gone. He's
Yeah,
played, admirably. He's had, some better games, and then he struggled on the road at Arizona State. But like, Baron Morton has left, I think, 3 games this year with injuries. So if you're BYU, you want to hit him and sort of test how healthy he is, and see what, if you could get to Mitch Griffiths, who's the former Wake Forest quarterback. If you could get to him, that would do you solid, because again, this Texas Tech defense is pretty salty. So I have a hard time seeing BYU scoring a whole lot of points. But if it is a game where you can keep it low scoring and it becomes a field position game, I'm not super familiar with Texas Tech's specialists, right? Their punter and their kicker, but BYU has pretty good punter kicker tandem, and pretty good special teams play kind of all around. They've engineered some good returns and things like that. So I think you're going to have to win at the margins if you're BYU to really have a good crack at this. The last thing I'll say about it is if you can play with a lead, and this kind of goes without saying, but like, any team is well served to play with a lead. But I think especially for BYU, they've got some young pass rushers that we've highlighted a couple times here that I don't think odds makers or or like personnel people that kind of like watch tape have really caught up with. So they've had Tarsilia Kana and Nusi Tanway-Peao have played more in the last 2 or 3 games than they had the beginning half of the season. And they're pretty good pass rushers. And so if you're forcing Texas Tech to throw the ball a lot in the second half and you're able to deploy that pass rush sort of specialty unit, that could be pretty fruitful, right? That's where you would start to see, okay, some sacks, maybe the QB after taking some hits is making poorer decisions, and then some turnovers start to come from that. But I'm picking Texas Tech to win. I think I'm picking them to cover. I think it's a really tough spot for BYU. At some point, the true freshman's going to have a bad day, and maybe the rest of the team isn't able to pick him up. And I think that maybe we run into that this time around.
Yeah, you do have LJ Martin coming back though too, so that'll be
That's a
helpful.
big addition. You're going to need him against that defensive line.
Yep. So I got nothing else to say on that. Do you want to go picks?
Yeah, let's go to picks. Do you want to recap us?
Yep. So last week I went 4-6. I picked Memphis to win by -14. They won. Miami, that didn't happen. UGA to -7. That didn't happen. And a -21.5 definitely happened. Iowa State -7. That didn't happen. Kansas State +7. I thought they might keep it close to Texas Tech, that they might overlook them. Nope, that didn't happen. Notre Dame to blow out Boston College. That didn't happen. Georgia Tech to beat NC State and cover. That didn't happen. I did pick the over in the Texas Tech and Kansas State game, and Texas Tech almost single-handedly hit the over, so I didn't have to worry about as much about that. And then you talked me into North Texas versus Navy at the end of the time. So I go 4-6, and you go not
North
much.
Texas Navy did that. That did.
Yeah, that was right.
That was one of the winners, right? Okay, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, 4-6, and you go 3-5 with calling the Syracuse loss to UNC, and Texas's win over Vandy, albeit barely. It was the line was 2.5.
It felt like it was
Recovery.
great, right? Yeah, I felt like, oh, perfect. That one's in the bank.
You also picked Iowa State, and faded FSU, which apparently was a mistake. You were on the wrong side of the Pac-12 fight.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my goodness.
and then also the San Jose and Hawaii fight as well. You picked Virginia to upset Cal, which was or to be upset by Cal, which actually
That
was
one was
kind of
close.
close.
Was
Huh?
it? Like I felt like I checked in on the game like 2 or 3 times from the
It
score. And
was.
again,
I want to
I
say it
didn't
was
watch
close
it.
early
Yeah.
on,
Yeah,
but let
it
me
just
see if
didn't
I
feel like
got
they
it.
like really were like a real threat. Like I felt like every time they got it within a score, Virginia like immediately stretched it back out
Yeah,
to two. And
yeah. I'm trying to find that one. Virginia. Yeah, it was like they were always within striking distance, but never could quite get over the hump. If I go play by play, it's like they were down 10-0, but then they made it 10-7, and then it was 17-7. Like they could kind of get there, and then it was 17-14. It's like, oh, we're close, and
yeah,
then
they were
Jared put it
always
away.
chasing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they were down by 3 with in the fourth quarter, and so UGA scores a touchdown. UGA scored a touchdown on the last play of the game to cover.
Uh,
I think that's
I
what.
I don't know. It's news to me, but
Yeah, with 30, they score an interception for a touchdown with 34 seconds left to cover.
so otherwise I have my cover, right?
Yeah, otherwise you would have had it.
All
And
right.
then North Texas. So you
North
go
Texas
three and
is good
five,
stuff. Yeah.
and I go 4-6. I don't know what is a better percentage. So
I think I let out last time. I'll give you the honors.
all right, sounds good to me. Mm, So this week I have been the I don't know what the opposite of fading a team is. What's the opposite of fading a team? Like riding a team? I'm riding Indiana all day. -14.5 at Penn State. That's still the line. Oh, it's up to 15.5, but I had it at 14.5, but I'll still take it 15.5. And that was actually just a few hours ago, so that line has changed significantly. But yeah, there's no way that Indiana doesn't cover in that, in my opinion. Ohio State has struggled to put up a lot of points lately, but you are playing. Let me see if I can find that. You are playing Purdue. Give me them to cover the 29.5 against Purdue. Duke -9.5 at UConn. That UConn team has come on a little bit this toward the end of the season, but I think this Duke team is trying to put Manny Diaz in a position to actually pick up one of these head coaching jobs. Um, Give me Miami minus 28.5 versus Syracuse. They're going to be reeling a little bit from their loss to SMU, but the Syracuse team is not good. Um, Georgia, they have played games a little tighter than I like, but give me them to cover the 8.5 versus Mississippi State. Oregon, I just talked about them. I don't feel like they've been blowing teams out. They've been playing with their food, but give me them to cover the 6.5 against Iowa. I don't know if that's probably one of my least confident ones. And then I always pick favorites. Give me Navy to cover the 26.5 loss to Notre Dame. I think that they're plus 25, 6.5. I think they'll play them tighter than they should. Hopefully they don't have 7 turnovers this year like they did last year, which is kind of what shot them in the
Yeah,
foot.
that
So
really was the one that game snowballed on that.
yeah,
Was
like
that your last pick?
that's my last one. Unless you can talk me into any more.
Mm, we'll see. Here's where I'm at. Okay, you know how like sometimes when teams fire their coach, they get a little like burst of energy where it's like, okay, some of the bad juju's out of
Are you
the
picking
team.
Auburn?
Auburn plus 6.5 versus Vanderbilt. You don't have to win; you just got to cover. And their defense is really good. They're the only team other than I think Indiana and Ohio State to hold every single opponent under 24 points.
It's not a bad pick then.
Okay, so like I don't need a ton of scoring. I just need a little
Yeah,
bit and a really good defensive effort. Like, and I think you can get that. Okay, and it's DJ Durkin is the interim head coach, which
yeah.
is
I I like that pick. I'm not going to join you with it, but I really do like that pick.
yeah. So again, the defense coordinator is now the head coach. I think the defensive players play inspired for him. Uh, so yeah, that's one of them. Um,
I have a terrible comment to say about that, but I'm not going to say it right now about DJ Dirk. it was
well,
going.
did you see some of the Twitter like jokes?
No, I didn't, but it would have
Okay,
been along those lines.
we'll talk about it. All, yeah, offline. We don't need to go on the record with that. But yes,
Oh. Anyways, go on.
their internet remembers is kind of long and short of that. Like,
Yeah,
and rightfully so. Right?
yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. Like, yeah. Go
So
on.
all right. So yeah, I said that it's a Navy Notre Dame. I think we're kind of along the same lines. Here's where I'm a little nervous about taking the 26 and a half, like Navy to cover it. But my thought process is both teams like to run the football. I think if you're tackling okay, like Navy just tackle, like no like 90-yard runs from Notre Dame. So I like the
Yeah.
under 56 and a half. I don't like that's the side I'm taking is like Notre Dame's going to run the football, Navy's going to run the football. The clock's going to run provided you don't get a track meet where like people are running like there's just people out of gaps and there's lots of explosive runs. So this could be that I don't know if you remember the Boise State Georgia Southern game from last year where I was like, oh, they both run the football, it'll
Yeah,
be
and
a
then
lock. And then Ashton Genty averaged like 20 yards a carry or something in the first half. It's like oh, he had like 3 different runs of like 60 plus. Um, so that's there's some risk there. I'm acknowledging that on the front end, but I am picking it. Uh, San Diego State -7 at Hawaii. San Diego State's a really good team. The rest of the Mountain West is okay. So I think that they're going to go. There's some travel. It's not easy, but I think they'll go ahead and take care of
you had
business.
-7.
Yeah. Are you seeing that? Am I
Yep, I'm seeing that.
okay? BYU Texas Tech under 52 and a half. Again, like I said, I think BYU is going to struggle to score points. It really is going to be on their defense to keep them in this game. I think they can do that to a degree. Like I really like even if this snowballs on them, like which there's a chance. Like I think Texas Tech could win this game by 21, 24, 28 points. But even then it probably is like a 38 to 10 and I still feel and I'm okay there, right? Like you just you can't give up 40 or so. Like again, I think BYU struggles to score. I hope that that's not the case, but my best play on that is
Texas
probably
Tech
Atlanta.
averages up there, like up in the 40s per game,
Yeah, but they
and
haven't
they've done it.
faced very many great defenses. They did it against Utah's defense, who I think is good. And part of that was just like, okay, we weren't prepared for Will Hammond, who runs around a little bit more. We knocked out the starter. We were holding them to a pretty good.
Yeah.
So that one, I think BYU is a better defense than most of the defenses they've played.
Okay.
So that's the thought process. Again, I don't think you're necessarily going to stop them. I think you just need to slow them down, right? But yeah, there's potential for that one to snowball for sure. West Virginia -6.5 versus Colorado. West Virginia blew out Houston, put up a bunch of points on the board, may have found something in their fourth string quarterback. And Colorado starting a true freshman on the road, traveling all the way across the country into Morgantown.
Yep. Yep.
That just doesn't sound like. And Colorado's been blown out 2 weeks in a row. So I just there's a lot going for me there. That to me would be that might be the one I push more chips on the table. Maybe 2 or 3 units if you're betting in same unit increments or whatever.
Yeah.
Clemson's -2.5 versus FSU. The point still stands. You beat Wake Forest. I'm gonna have to see it multiple times before I believe it.
Yep. The problem is I would fade Florida State, but I also fade Clemson, so I don't know who to pick.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm just leaning on the home field environment. Kind of making it extra tough on FSU. Although if you start strong, if you're Florida State, that home field advantage may be a home field disadvantage. You could see that crowd turning ugly against their own. So maybe
I do want
to see what it looks like in the first quarter and then make a determination on which side you want to back.
I wonder if you could bet about how many turnovers would be on in that game, because I would put it in the 5 or 6 range. I feel like Tommy's going to turn the ball over.
That's not. Yeah, Klubnik has always been a fan of throwing it to the wrong team. Yeah, there's got to be some prop bet for that. I'm very curious what the.
I see touchdown totals, winning margin. But that's
anyway.
Yeah, I put me in the over 4 if there's an opportunity. That's what I would guess. I'm not going to put that on as a bid, but it's funny.
Oh yeah, maybe not.
Anyways, go on.
Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah, there's got to be a way to do that. Anyway, let's see. Did we get through them all? I think I got them all. I went a little bit out of order.
You have 6 picks?
BYU, yes, 6.
Mm-hmm. Yep, got them all.
Okay. Who knows? They're probably all wrong. At some point, there's got to be a good opportunity to just parlay all of my picks, but the opposite side of them, and just bet $10 on that, and you probably make $30 million. And I mean, that's absurd, but and one of them would probably come through for you at some point. But
there you go.
Yeah, that's all I got. Anything else from you?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Appreciate your patience with us. New dads, YouTube TV, and ESPN/Disney. Get your act together. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.